Okay, and so I guess we can kind of go through some updates. Keith or Crystal, do either of you want to kind of go through the newsletter that just went out? If you got it in front of you, if not, I think I do.
I think Crystal should probably take it since I've been out of the game this week.
Let me pull it up real quick. So basically, for our growth, we really kind of fleshed out some of the ideas that surfaced on last week's town hall in one of our spaces about creating like guidance services for that bridge between Web 2 and Web 3 for journalists and media outlets that are looking to really create sustainability and longevity using blockchain. So we're just kind of fleshing out what that would look like as providing professional services through the DAO. So we kind of fleshed that out on Miro. And some of these ideas we're fleshing out on Miro, I imagine once we get them more solidified, we'll bring them into a town hall and maybe walk through a screen share of the Miro board itself, or just talk about it and bounce ideas off the community. We also had our town hall last week on our Twitter Spaces, and maybe in a minute here I'll kick it over to Jennifer because she helped bring in some interesting conversations into that that we were then able to take offline and pursue, which was actually a lot of fun. Eric ran we were featured on Sapien Nation as one of the roundtable DAOs. They were exploring the way DAOs are addressing different aspects of the climate crisis. So Eric was able to hop in there and a really interesting conversation. If you're able to listen to that recording, I think I found a few really good rabbit holes. I spent the rest of the day like going through some of these DAOs and they were fascinating. So that was a lot of fun. We also on our Miro board fleshed out the founder NFT a little more, kind of put some more ideas, made them a little more solid. We also had a call with Wyoming Governor's Office, and maybe Eric, you can follow up and give some more details about that. We just opened the conversation with some of those in charge that work for Wyoming legislature about the legal structures of DAOs, and then also exploring, the need on the ground in Wyoming that has a lot of areas that are media deserts, and then how could we introduce, these sustainability models through decentralization to help revive those media outlets within small towns where everything just kind of disappears once a conglomerate comes in and buys out the media outlets. So that was actually a lot of fun to flesh that out as well. So yeah, that's the main part of our update.
Well, and Crystal also had a really awesome blog post in addition to the newsletter blog post. I don't know if we can just point people to that if you want to sum that up at all. I don't know, kind of a primer really on NFTs, right?
Yeah, and I wrote that essay kind of based on the conversations we've been having in town hall spaces, and then I stumbled into a very weird spaces about media in Web3, but it was all about branding and marketing. So I wrote the essay to just kind of begin a conversation about the framework, how to frame this conversation for journalists, what blockchain can actually do, the technology underneath NFTs, what it can actually do for someone who has dedicated their life to gathering stories and information. Stepping beyond the crypto bro conversation and the cartoons and all the stuff that has its place, in the market. But there's a deeper conversation that once you scrape all that away, that we really need to have, be it one-on-one over coffee with our colleagues or at scale, to really show them what's possible with this technology. So that's on the blog too.
It's a good read. So yeah, everyone who's here or maybe watching this later, JournoDAO.xyz/blog, and you shall find everything. On the Wyoming thing, really quick. Yeah, we had I have a friend who's the policy director for the governor of Wyoming, and we've, kind of been in touch a little bit over the last year because, was familiar with the DAO legislation there and have been obviously going down the Web3 rabbit hole. And so we've kind of, been in touch. And so, yeah, we just kind of had a call to let them know what we're doing, what we're about. And I think some really good contacts and ideas should result from that, and have working to schedule a follow-up call with the two actual state legislators up there that are responsible for drafting that bill that became the DAO law. And so hopefully we'll see. I'm not entirely sure where that'll go, but I think that'll be a good connection to have, and we'll see what opportunities might emerge from that. I guess I'm hopeful that some of the things we want to do in local communities, like you were saying, Crystal, Wyoming is kind of it's kind of the exact example of some of the news desert problems that we talked about a lot, and the lack of local community news. It definitely, and they were kind of, the folks we talked about from the governor's office were kind of confirming that there is kind of a corridor along Interstate 80 where there's been tons of media consolidation going on, and maybe some communities there aren't being as served as well by their local papers as they used to be or as they could be. So we'll see if maybe there's some opportunities that come out of that. So stay tuned on that. And Jennifer, I'll leave it up to you how much you want to share and summarize about the call that you led earlier.
Yeah, so I'm aware we're recording, so I'll just be sensitive to that. The call that I felt that our call with with the media company in San Francisco was a really solid call. I did feel like we kept it as kind of Web 2 friendly as possible. And I could also see a divide in the approach from Web 2 to Web 3, and even in a meeting style. And I was wondering how that was going to play out because, typically from a top-down organization, there's the boss, and then he kind of has these amazing ideas, and then everybody kind of says, yes, let's do it, and then we just figure it out, and they don't need to know all the other details. And, when you have the decision maker usually in the room. And so in this experience, I thought it was quite unique because, we're all coming together as equally equal in an equal position, and we're sharing some of the possible advice that we have to offer. And I do think that is a bit of a difference than doing a typical BD meeting or partnership meeting where it's like, here's a team that's going to activate and we'll just figure it out. So I just decided to just let our contact just have a day or two to and I sent him a few articles showing exactly kind of what we were talking about. But then I just took off, I'll reach back in the morning tomorrow morning, and I'll probably what do you guys think if I present just like a really cheesy, easy sort of like a little pictorial of what it is we're talking about, so it doesn't seem so complicated. I just kind of feel like we need to then pick up that conversation and really see like what we think is possible, if we think anything is possible for this opportunity. So for the rest of you, we were just talking to a media company that wants to do NFT projects and has an archive of incredible footage. And we kind of presented, how you build a community around it and some of our ideas. And I think that was something that they hadn't thought of. And so it became a little bit more complex than they understood, which NFTs are.
Did you get any feedback after the call about, things that were confusing or any other questions or comments?
No, he just said, thanks for facilitating and being point. I said, here's an article, and I sent the Vault CNN, which I thought was really dry and boring. But I wanted him to understand that this is very similar to what they're doing. And what we were saying is you could actually create conversation around these historical pieces. And then it shared that there's a community involvement as a part of it. So I wanted him to do the read on his, on his own, so that he can understand that this is not a new concept. This is the concept. Yeah, and so I told him I could share some revenue models, because I think that that's the thing that people are thinking still of, revenue based. So I'd love to get you guys. I'd love to get him back in a room, share already something that shares some models of what can happen and how it can happen. And if you guys are open to that, I'll be working towards that meeting.
Cool.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
I thought it was a really good alignment of core sort of values between all of us. So, JournoDAO and him.
Do you think it was helpful to talk about our own NFT project, or was that kind of just like confusing things even more?
No, I thought that was a great example that you led, and I was appreciative of it. I think he's just new to the space. And, a lot of these people are like, oh, I have this amazing content and let's create an NFT and bring in some revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand the mechanisms of an NFT. And like, it doesn't just sell. He wanted to repeat sell, but that wasn't the time for an education. However, I do think there is, if we actually went out with a really incredible something that we could bring to Web 2, I think there could be an incredible opportunity to do some paid education. For sure. Yeah. Or speaking opportunities within the companies, going to the companies. I was going to suggest maybe we do that with him and we bring in that kind of approach. But I don't want to overwhelm him as well. What's your thoughts?
I thought he seemed pretty receptive, and it felt like he was grokking most of what we were throwing at him. Yeah, I mean, whatever you think makes the most sense as like a next step forward, or illustrating some of the concepts, like yeah, I would totally be interested to hear or see what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I need to drive it. So I think I'll just put something together, a pictorial of like, an NFT project without a community, a one-on-one NFT project and this is what it looks like, and this is just the user experience. And this is the revenue kind of opportunities potentially. I think that's the only, like, I just have to do it that way. It's just almost, yeah.
I think you have a good read on his comfort level, so I would just, follow your gut on that.
We'll follow your lead.
Yeah, I didn't see any deer in headlights. So that's actually, whenever I talk tech to non-tech, or Web 3 to Web 2, usually there's a deer in headlight moment. And I didn't really see that in our conversation. So I felt like he got the gist of it and like was comfortable diving in deeper to it.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I was very happy with it. So I just need to drive it to the next step. I mean, like anything, sometimes we have to generate opportunities by keep moving them forward, because he might got busy or this or that. And so if it's not top of his mind, it's, has to be top of mine if I'm interested in. So yeah, I will do that.
And I guess, if there's anything we can do to, assist with, I don't know, like some sort of like, if you're thinking like a deck or something, any materials or collateral, I guess, if there's anything that we can help, construct, let us know.
Yeah, I'll send you some really like basic stuff that I was thinking of. I'll put together and I'll do that this week, and then you guys can just have a look at it, and then I'll just, tell them I think, and there, let's have a second conversation and see the possible journey of like what we can do. And then
Perfect. Sounds good.
that's what I'll do.
I want to chime into that because I've been in a lot of NFT spaces, and one of the education is really important. So I'm glad you're into that, Miss Jennifer. One thing for sure that we would like to attempt is making sure that they mint their first NFT, like a personal NFT of their own, so they know how that process goes. It's just some of the suggestions of people that are in the space for educational purposes. So that's just the feedback we got from the NFT community. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just curious, dealing with like tech and media executives for so long, sometimes they don't necessarily want to get their hands in everything. They just want people to activate. How are your feelings about this new movement from Web? Well, it seems like in Web3, like everybody's hands on deck.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering, how are you guys feeling that we can actually, how how do we approach that in a way that still serves it up for them? I feel like there has to be like a 2.5 or something here, because obviously there's still a hierarchy as they have the money and it's his project, but I still don't think he's going to have time to get in there and look through the archives and do all the gritty. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think he needs someone on his team that he trusts to really dive deep into what it is we're doing, because you can't completely externalize what we're doing. Like you have to have someone, either you or on your team, that knows how to access the wallet, what's being minted, how it's being minted. They don't have to know how to write the contract, but they need to know what the contract is and that the NFTs are attached to it. So they need a point person within their team that they can trust to help facilitate it. And that's my opinion.
Okay. I kind of feel like he's trying to use me as that person, but I'm not in the office. So I
It needs
don't
to be
mind.
someone, yeah, it needs to be somebody that is sitting at the desk next to him, in my opinion, because there's so many things like just accessing it. You need to be able to attach the MetaMask to whatever it is you're trying to attach it to. And he
Okay.
can't be calling you all the time for that.
Yeah.
So those types of things, just the nuts and bolts of running it, it does need to be internal.
All right, great. I know what to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think there's got to be a right fit to, I mean, he might ultimately not be like the right fit for us or us for him. But I think there's some, Jesus. Never mind. Sorry about that. I just think that we kind of need to be okay with only talking to people who are kind of willing to make at least some sort of step, like I don't think we can completely make it just plug and play like from the new world to the old world. So we're going to need to look for the people who are a little bit adventurous, a little bit curious. But yeah, I think that's a good requirement, Crystal, that there should be somebody internally who can like quarterback things, because we can only do so much from the outside, and it's probably a little bit too much to expect the decision maker to also be doing the actual like MetaMask stuff or like looking at contracts and all that. So we could definitely educate somebody internally to be that person, but it's probably not going to be like in this situation the decision maker who wants to like get their brain around it.
Yeah, I mean, even just dealing with multi-sig wallets, like you really need somebody internally and maybe even externally to help run those types of things, because that wallet is going to be the most important aspect of the whole thing. So, and I know a lot of my friends who are in Web 2 or whatever, you lose your password, you can't do that. So
Yeah, okay, great. So included in my little diagram will be people. People needed, just keeping it basic, like a little team. I think this is why companies are hiring Web3 teams. Yeah.
It'd be good to have like some kind of educational materials to kind of kick people to, particularly if we're talking about smaller organizations, which I think we might eventually be. I mean, that'd be a good thing to develop maybe in the long run, whether it's just like stuff online or even like something kind of more like what Seed Club does, of just like kind of educating people, but some sort of course that's maybe focused on Web2 media people, trying to make the jump. I think that would be something to look for funding to produce at some point. Cool. Anything else on that particular call? Any other thoughts? The next thing I had down was an update on the founder NFT plan, and I don't know if there is an update since Keith, you took a few days there under the weather, so I don't know if is there anything new to report?
Not from my end, unless Crystal's had any more thoughts on it. I think the next thing that we were trying to do is for her and I to just link up and kind of do a tool evaluation, platform evaluation, and then make a decision, and then have the next step after that. But is that kind of still where we're at, Crystal, or did you have any more thoughts?
yeah, no, that's about it. I went into the Miro board and put in some of my thoughts on Unlock and other platforms like Guild. And then just kind of very loose thoughts on the founder NFT. Some of the stuff we'd already talked about, I just kind of put it in sticky notes underneath that, so it's in one container. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, hopefully next week we'll have some movement on that.
Cool. Right on. Hey, welcome, Spencer. We were just kind of doing an update of the past week. I don't think you missed a ton that you aren't already up to speed on, but you want to say hey and tell us how Andrew Yang is doing?
Yeah, the call went very well, actually. We got to squeeze in a lot of questions. And it's, again, someone from Sapien came by and they made that connection as well. So it was a cool bunch of connections happening in that meeting.
Right
and
on.
actually, the journalism was brought up too. And so one of the lead policy guys at Humanity Forward expressed an interest in journalism. And so I may be able to follow up with him about that moving forward.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, welcome. We were just about to, well, the next thing I was going to bring up was a new Gitcoin round starts in about, I think, a week and a half or so. I think it's June 6th, maybe. And so, we still have the original campaign up there from March. And things have, so my understanding is that, and tell me if I'm wrong, Keith, but that when this now starts on the 6th, then our project is again live for contributions. So I guess the conversation to have is how do we want to change that up? Do we want to, well, number one, do we want to pursue fundraising through Gitcoin again this round? Do we want to change it up to maybe focus on the buying a newspaper angle? Any thoughts?
Someone else was just talking about this in Lobby 3, and it may point to an issue that we may have here, and it has to do with if the project has a token launch either active or is planning to, that may be some kind of disqualifying factor. I'm not sure if that applies to us, or if we plan on having a token launch, if that will disqualify us for certain things. But I'm not sure if this is just one category of Gitcoin, or if this is a general rule they have. It just might be something to consider. Like there could be
Right. When we at one point we mentioned the idea of doing an NFT, and it was almost just like a POAP that we were going to give to donors, and I think I edited the project description and mentioned that, and they immediately flagged it and took it down. So yeah, that's where it's, I don't know, do you know, Keith, is that as a direct incentive to give to the campaign, or is it if you have tokens in your model at all?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I'd have to look into that. I don't know if Amy, you seem to have some insight into Gitcoin. Does any of this sound familiar to you?
One of my DAOs was able to get funding on Gitcoin, and didn't we do that at one time, or was it another DAO? I'm kind of in several DAOs, so have you applied in Gitcoin yet, or not yet?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
one.
we did.
Yeah,
we did the last round.
Yeah, I think what they wanted, Gitcoin wants, is for y'all to let the community donate. It doesn't matter how big or how small. That just shows that you have a lot of support. And that's what the other DAO that I was in did. They had 200 plus donors, and most of them are not even associated with our DAO. So once you apply, you make sure that you promote it to other people to make donations. So Gitcoin or GitHub can either match it, or they'll tell you how much they will match. So that's what we did, because we have somebody in that area that's also a member of our DAO, so we're giving insider points, pointers.
My recollection, Spencer, on that point that you bring up was that I think the issue is you can't specifically tie any incentive to donate. You can't say if you donate you get this.
I see. Also, I could give Nick an introduction if you want. Just joined.
Sure.
So I met Nick through PubDAO actually, and he's been going on to experiment with on-chain analysis using Nansen, and he teaches a weekly.
For donations, I guess, do we think it's worth giving it a shot again with maybe a different angle?
Sorry if I was speaking over you. I didn't know that you were speaking. I'm just cutting out, I guess.
Yeah, Eric, I don't think we heard something on your end. Are you still there?
His video is frozen for me.
Yeah. Eric, you might have to leave and come back if you're able to.
Actually, don't leave because it'll shut down.
Shut down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can make Keith host, then hop off.
Yeah. While we wait for him, though, I think Spencer, you should go ahead and introduce Nick.
While we wait for him, or when he gets back?
Yeah, while we wait, go ahead and.
Okay. Yeah. So Nick has been. I met him through PubDAO, and he's moved on to work at Global Coin Research, and he gives seminars weekly on-chain analysis using Nansen, which is this really high-grade on-chain analysis tool, and he's going about it in an investigative way, so he can track market movements, and if there's any kind of fishy activity, it's there's this kind of investigative praxis that he's working out in real time in these calls that he does, and it's really cool. So it's a cool talent to bring to this professional network if he's interested in doing so.
Yeah, thank you, and happy to be here. So yeah, basically my goal is to kind of give people a more general idea of how easy it is to get stories and information about these big mysterious blockchain transactions that are actually quite easy to trace. That's kind of my whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Are you were you familiar with JournoDAO, or is this your
Not until about 5 minutes ago, to be totally honest with you. But my goal has been to kind of build a scaffold between journalists and on-chain research. That's what I've been doing, kind of as a side project for the past year. So I feel very much at home talking to journalists about this type of stuff.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. I think that's definitely part of the domain that we want to cover is not just Web3 tools for journalists, but also, you know, the journalism of the Web3 world and how that's different, and specifically chain analysis and what happens when everything's public, but still relatively obscure.
Yeah, and it really is quite, I've looked for other people doing this work. There's not a lot of options, to be totally honest with you. That's kind of why I'm doing it. There's a gap there. And the people that know how to communicate, people with good communication skills, tend to not be very technical. So I feel like there's a good opportunity to just simplify things to make it very accessible for people to trust the methods for sourcing information. I know that, for example, the Panama and Pandora papers were really big sources of stories for years, continuing even into today. And I see that if money is moving into politics through entities like Lobby 3, and politicians start to use that money to do things that they think is private when it's not, it can get really interesting what you can learn just by watching transactions move across this public chain. Normally you would need a subpoena to do that type of work. So I'm
That's
happy
awesome.
to get more about your mission statement before I start rambling about topics, but I'm interested for sure.
That also helps the conversation we were having just before you came on, Nick, about creating a bridge that allows journalists from Web 2 to come into Web 3. Because I think if they could actually understand how to read like Etherscan and see what's actually happening, they would see that it's not a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid or whatever they've been sold. They can actually just see that this is a logical way to look at how humans are transacting through data. That's huge.
It really is. And I don't think they understand the implications of that without comparing it to something that's already known. So for me, it's like every single bank account is public and you can constantly check what's going on with it, and finding things that nobody knows that actually relate to current events and stories that people are trying to follow and get. Like, for example, there was a Terra Luna crashing, and all of these, we've had a bunch of DeFi hacks in the past 6 months. Now, the Axie hack was attributed to actually a North Korean group, which de facto would mean the North Korean government stole the money from the Axie protocol and then kept it and funneled it through some mixers to keep it. So what I've found just the past couple of days is that some of the attacks that have happened in DeFi the past 6 months look very similar to the attack that happened on Luna's protocol. And I think there's a chance, it's like a 10% chance, but there's a chance that the same person that did some of these other DeFi hacks, which the biggest actor right now is North Korean government, might have been involved in the Luna attack. I'm not sure, but it's that kind of stuff. It makes sense when you think about, like, Luna's a South Korea-based project, so the implications are pretty huge. And the only people that have this information, other than people like me, are analysis and Cybertrace. People that partner with the U.S. government.
But how did you get that through Nansen?
That might take me an hour to go through, but
okay,
I can't.
So you're doing your own little stuff. Like, it's not like something they, you're having to really dive into the analytics and use your own sort of tactical skills to like figure out the loopholes and the rabbit holes.
Well, honestly, not really. I'm an amateur doing this, and I feel confident that I can teach anybody to be an amateur doing the same work. Kind of like citizen journalism or citizen science. It's not very technical to use Nansen. What is technical is if you want to consider it publishable information, that you're not going to get sued as a repercussion. You want to be confident enough that you can publish something and prove it. That the documentation steps require a little bit of work to get through that scrutiny. So I would want to at least show you why I think what I think, and that would require laying out the process. But to just tell you very simply, I do think I can show anybody basically to do this. I think I can show a 10-year-old how to do this and teach them. It just requires patience. And the reason this is possible is that people can detect patterns in a way that computers have difficulty with. It's very difficult to automate these analytics to track the techniques that are used to make thousands of wallets and then funnel money through them. So that's why this is like Nonsense AI is tracking specifically smart money, big VC wallets, venture capital wallets, and large anonymous traders that have millions or tens of millions or billions in crypto holdings, and they're still unidentified wallets. Nobody knows who owns them, what the endpoint is for the funds. The only people that know are the people that own the wallets and maybe cryptocurrency exchanges, and whoever can deduce timing to try to figure out who it is. Like if there's a huge hack on Axie and then the next day there's a wallet with $800 million in it, you can deduce that that might be the person that hacked the Axie protocol if all the money came from Tornado Cash yesterday morning. That's kind of the thought process there.
So I missed the intro, Nick. You're with Nonsen?
Actually, no, they've never paid me a dime, but they probably should.
Okay.
I talk about them quite a lot. Yeah, I work for Global Coin Research as a contributor. I work for an Asia-based company called Mask Network in a professional capacity, and I do this kind of as a side hobby because the value to me is that teaching people how to do this stuff, there's a lot of side benefits to just demonstrating how interesting this is and how much of an opportunity I see it to be for generating content leads and for doing real journalism.
And for also helping shape legislation. I mean, a lot of like the Luna thing is going to end up in front of the SEC at some point. And then if you can debunk any ridiculous thing that a politician's claiming because you have hard data that shows that this is actually what happened, that's huge. And I think investigative reporters would just, they'd be drooling over the ability to sit down with this kind of data and attach it to human action.
It's not definitive yet, but I might get to speak at an IRE conference in June next month. So it'd be my first one. So yeah, this is very new. I have not publicly talked about this much except for since December. Partly because this is actually very sensitive information a lot of the time. And I've learned that through trial and error, actually, that you know, the method works. I find valuable information, and then finding it getting verified takes a lot of time to reach the public. But the gap in between finding the information and it being public, being able to verify it is the trick. If you can do that, it's basically gold dust. And then yeah, either you release it or you act on it in a passive way and hold on to it.
Eric, you might have to pause
yeah.
the recording again.
Yeah.
We record these things, and I messed up last week's. Well, that's really beautiful. I just kind of laughing because you said it's sensitive information, and we're on a recorded town hall.
Oh, that's fine. No, I'm not saying anything that is not public. Not, you know, I'm counting on obscurity because no one's going to see this in time. The information is always time sensitive in general.
And Zoom is essentially malware anywhere, even if we weren't recording it. So you just kind of have to assume that everybody's listening to this. So
that's the flip side. What I see it as is it's really just doxing information that a lot of people already have, data brokers already have. It's just the general public doesn't understand how public it is to certain groups. So it's a nice way to flip it around and make it easier for people to digest. If that makes sense.
I mean, I definitely like to go a little deeper on this at some point. Are you in our Discord, or what's the best way to follow up?
Yeah, I'm in your Discord. I joined about 15 minutes ago, I think. I'm currently sitting. I just I had a lot of interesting calls today, so I've been doing them from my car. But yes, I will be home later and I'd be happy to talk about this in detail.
Okay. Oh, I see in the server. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I think that's super fascinating, and I always kind of figured there were a lot of people out there basically doing what you described, but maybe there's not as many as I assumed.
If they do, I think they've got NDAs because they just don't seem to release this information. I mean, the open source intelligence community has some people that do this, but I don't see anyone, to be totally honest with you, I haven't seen anybody that gets the level of information that I'm able to. And that really scares me because I'm very much an amateur doing this. I'm not egotistical about what I'm finding. It's just that I don't find, I'll look on Twitter sometimes when I find wallets that are doing really suspicious stuff and just no one's saying anything about it. There's no articles. Months go by and nobody notices. So you accumulate a lot of leads like that, and then eventually I realize that the signals intelligence that I'm finding needs a human intelligence network to pair with it to verify it. If you can do that step with journalism, with the journalist networks that already exist as an institutional framework, I think that this is a really easy win, and there's a lot of synergy there. So I don't care about making money off of it so much as just getting the stories out while there's still time to do this work. I don't think this is always going to be possible.
Yeah, and most of the InfoSec community that does this type of work, they don't ever put it out publicly. They send it directly to government agencies. They don't communicate with journalists unless it's in an open way to show what they were capable of doing after the fact. I work with some InfoSec folks in a hackerspace, and that's what they do all day. They just never publicize it.
And that's because you reveal the fact that you can find it, and then it just gets more sophisticated and harder to find. But I talked to a journalist that's done a couple stories in crypto, and he mentioned to me that when he talked to Chainalysis about trying to get access to their program, the moment he mentioned he was a journalist, the conversation was over. If he'd said he was in law enforcement, I think he would have had a shot. But that's now is trying to get access to more analytics tools, just to pair all the information together and see who's getting the best shake.
I think
So why? Go ahead, Keith.
This just indicates to me that we're in a unique position to maybe put together a working group to just educate people on how to do this, and then get the insights and the stories out, verify all this stuff, and then have that be something that we do, because we're probably the only intersection where that makes sense at this point.
I want to mention something. I'm really tempted to say something right now, but I don't want to say it in a recording. I'll talk to you offline for sure. I've got stories kind of ready to go.
Yeah, let's talk. Not now, but that's at some point.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm ready to do that. I'm excited. Yeah, pick a time. I'll make time for that.
Yeah,
good.
Eric, I wanted to ask you about this notion that why I'm curious why rather than buy a newspaper, why JournoDAO doesn't just start their own publication, even just from a small scale. I know a newspaper is very local. It's already got the structure and everything in place, and it's a physical, tangible place to be. But I'm just, yeah.
I'm not opposed to anything starting from scratch either. I think the idea of buying a newspaper, particularly in a community that might not be served by any media otherwise, is just kind of hits a bunch of buttons that we're interested in. I will say, like, actually in like the last this week, like while I've been like out running, this is something I've just been kind of thinking about, and I kind of had a couple days ago the same thought that you just expressed, that like that's probably not the well, I mean, we know it's not the lowest friction way in. It's kind of like it's kind of like a rallying cry, and kind of like a long-term adventure to go on. But I've definitely been having the thought lately that it's probably not the easiest way to start. What were you going to say, Keith?
Yeah, I view them as just separate fronts of the battle that ideally we can fight at the same time. I do think, a la like the validation of the network like thesis for local journalism, I think that's super important just for a functioning society. But then I think there's no sense in keeping any of our perspectives and stories and insights bottled up just because we're only focused on like local journalism. I think we should definitely, we have a blog, we have the ability to just publish stuff ourselves, so I think the philosophy here is yes and for sure. Like,
Right,
yep,
and
let's do
even
it.
with like things like is it Poacher, Ian's platform. Even things like that. It's like we need to be working with these tools as they come aboard. So yeah, yes, and I like that. I agree. So before I got I don't know what happened to my internet. Was there any other kind of final words on the Gitcoin campaign? What did I miss?
I think either I can take it on, or one of us just needs to maybe reach out and get an explicit like thumbs up that like our founder NFT idea doesn't like disqualify us from being a public good in their eyes. But I don't imagine that it would, because that doesn't seem like where the line should be drawn to me. But we'll see.
But even if it is, but there could still be a chance that once we have that launched and we're like past that phase, then maybe we can qualify. I don't know what the fine print is. But.
Yeah, right.
I can check with Scott. But
Okay.
I feel like it should be okay. While we're kind of on the topic, what you brought up, Jennifer, Spencer, do you know what's going on with the Sapien like metaverse newspaper? I have such a hard time kind of wrapping my head around. There doesn't be a lot of information about it, about what.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly on a technical level how they're implementing it, but I know that they're collecting like submissions now. Like I'm going to do a piece on like the state of Web3 and coalition building and all that stuff, and I think their time frame is on the order of a few weeks from now, but I don't know if that's set in stone yet. I think they're just in a phase of like collecting submissions and having the materials ready to go. But how it's actually implemented, it may be some kind of an a la carte NFT thing, or maybe they'll go the Good Morning News route and just make the whole thing one NFT. There's like a bunch of different discussions there that the different ways that they can tokenize aspects of the newspaper or the whole thing, or if they're going to be selling it just one issue at a time or selling it on a subscription basis. I think on a technical level, I'm not sure if they even have these answers yet themselves, though.
Gotcha. Okay.
This is Amy
Yes,
again.
sure.
If I can
Sure.
chime in on the Gitcoin public good issue, it has to be something that our DAO offer to the public, something that we provide either on a discount rate or free. So if you can think about that area that you can provide for free to the public, that's what they're looking for. Free or discounted, because I think ours, when we applied, it was like a discounted amount or something to the public that don't have as much resources to obtain our services. So
Yeah, so it seems like the education stuff that we're talking about, we're always talking about that being public. And then if there are any sort of like credentialing services, like that being as public as it can be, I think, yeah, that's a good way to think about it though. Like what, as a member of the public, what do you get from JournoDAO if you come to us or whatever?
Yeah, that's what popped into my brain too, was that initial educating Web 2 to come over to Web 3, like that could be highlighted and could always stay open and public, like we talked about already. And then as you know, the needs arise, the evolution that somebody might need down the road, they could come into a paying scenario, but that initial education and consultation or education could always be free, and it could be done in this town hall style format or some sort of open to everyone conversational format.
Yeah, I mean, this also ties into the consultation aspects. If we're still interested in having the private and the public, maybe the public consultations could be construed as a public good as far as Gitcoin's concerned.
I would imagine that would be one by one could be pretty time consuming. Yeah. I wonder if there's like wrapping it into like education could be like pushing them through a program that is also sellable to other people and developed already. Like maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they watch these videos and then we get on a call and answer questions. I don't know. I'm just thinking about like time from like one consultation. Things can be kind of crazy.
Yeah, one-to-one consultations wouldn't be public. It would be more of a group conversation. And then that would be the education would be done in a group format. And then if somebody needed to go deeper, they could choose that route on their own. But just creating that open platform for people to like submit, say somebody wants to submit an idea that they want to, explore transferring Web 2 over to Web 3. They submit the idea, the community would vote on it. They could come into this open forum, and then we could all have a conversation about it. And then a few key DAO members could educate specifically to what they need, but then everybody else around could listen and learn. And then there'd be options to take it to one-on-one later. And that's a whole different infrastructure that would be built out.
I'd even be open to going so far as to saying we're like an open public journalism school that people can come and learn about journalism and how to practice it, and specifically as it relates to Web3.
About an incubator type.
That is a good idea.
Oh, sorry. I'm seeing a lot of like incubation and labs and things pop up like in different NFT projects, and they're accepting cohorts. But the people that apply, the public and other people that apply get an actual interview to talk about their project for like a short interview. So I think it's like a really great way to, I don't know, but that's like once again, that's once you guys kind of get everything down and once we get everything down, I guess that's where you can really serve people to help them with their projects and maybe even somewhat invest in them if you were interested. I don't know, incubation, education, it all kind of piles into one really. It is separate in terms of from an academic and investment perspective though.
I like the decentralized J school. Journalists always are nostalgic about their J schools. So, I mean, most of the ones I know.
I think Stanford and a bunch of research schools are like taking making investments in like the people who kind of come out of their PhD programs or like start their businesses and stuff. Like there are the sort of private public partnerships happening. So I think that kind of naturally where the model goes, and I think that's great too.
That is very true, actually. There was recently a proposal that was passed. $30 million is going to, I think, 6 or 7 US-based universities and a few overseas. So basically money's flowing into universities to form those partnerships in a concrete manner. And it's just basically a public-private partnership that has no rigid structure right now. They're just trying to capture college students as like a labor force to fill the gap in the market.
What labor market are you talking about specifically? Like what kind of jobs?
So in cryptocurrency, it's kind of everything. There's a labor shortage for developers, especially, but
Yes, okay.
one of the issues that is commonplace across the entire industry is that everybody's trying to get, I'm putting up air quotes, like a community, an active community, and retaining people within that community that aren't employees is really difficult. You have that free rider problem that nobody wants to actively participate. So everybody's kind of passively involved and they don't have a stake in the project. I think one way that bigger players are trying to solve this problem is by getting people out of universities and being an official bridge for those universities. One program that does this is Cornell's Init C3 or IC3. They're the oldest, I think, that does this. They're kind of a consortium of colleges that basically help students build out startup companies into cryptocurrency, and they do a lot of blockchain teaching. They're probably the most well established. The second one, the one I just mentioned, is JournoDAO. They're based at Berkeley's handling the $30 million grants program. And then Stanford has another as well that's smaller, but just as influential. And if I remember right, I don't know if Stanford's I don't think they're in the $30 million grant program. I think they're separate. But I do think others are going to be doing the same because there's a lot of grant programs that don't have enough people to take advantage of them because there's such a developer shortage in crypto, and they're just throwing the money away that they're getting from investors and from the bull market to try to get skilled labor that doesn't exist into the market. So some people are basically competing for the skilled labor that's here, and that's taking the form of consultants and third parties, filling that gap as middlemen. And then the other side of that is trying to scale people into the industry by doing on-the-job training. I'm actually doing this right now at my own company. They've asked me to build a course about like basics on blockchain technology and what cryptocurrency is, because we just hired over 100 people into the company in a year and they don't know what the hell's going on. And a lot of them, to be totally honest, like are not competent at their level of current knowledge, and they don't know how to get it because there's not a standardized way to do this without digesting a lot of marketing information. Like there's no good solid information in crypto that's not corrupted by marketing. That's kind of the way it is. So until that resource hub exists, the people that fill the gap are giving you bad information that tries to shill different aspects to different projects.
I want to chime into that. Actually, my daughter just graduated in UPenn Wharton Business School, and they were paid by IBM to study cryptocurrency and blockchain. So yeah, it's already in the system.
Yeah, it is. And there's actually very few grant programs that exist that do this. There's like a handful of colleges. Most of them are Ivy League schools. So I don't know if anything like this exists at the state level for most colleges. There are a few. Like University of Michigan is another one that does this, and I think Caltech. But in general, like if you ask community colleges about this, there's basically nothing going on at most of them, as far as I know.
I saw this a lot at UNC, Chapel Hill, and I'm heading back there next month. So I'm going to actually meet with a lot of my professors and get the down low on that. We saw it with VR, we saw it with AI. I know it's happening with crypto with our business school there, but I'm sure it's also linked in with journalism because we have a lot of journalism professors that work with the business school. I think one of our professors made the crossover to business school and he got, I think it was like 100 million for VR and some other, in an educational context. So I'll see what money is being thrown around right now at UNC and that whole state system.
Yeah, I would just say that we should probably position ourselves as journalism specific because there's going to be a lot of, there's already a lot of DAOs that are, trying to onboard just in general, like Web2 people to Web3 or like Web2 developers to Web3 developers with developer DAO or whatever. And so I think we should be not just generally like educating people about Web3, but as it pertains to journalism, like practices and tools and all that.
And I'm really excited. I'm trying not to hijack the entire meeting by just talking a lot, but I have a lot of ideas I'd be happy to share for sure.
No, that's what we do here. Go ahead, hijack.
Yeah, go for it.
So PubDAO is doing this in kind of a light way because they don't have a lot of funding from Decrypt, but basically everybody has connections they're willing to leverage to pump out content if they can sell it to whatever company they're related to. So I know controversy is something that is easy to sell to companies to get publishing, but when it comes to teaching and education content, they tend to want more editorial authority on what gets pushed through, because it might, if I write a bad article about the fundamentals of like NFT marketplaces isn't going to want to shill the thing that I'm writing, obviously. So my thinking on this is that if you have something like, GitHub is owned by Microsoft. They bought it in 2018, right? Gitcoin, which is Kevin Iwaki's baby, he does a lot of public talks about Gitcoin, and he does this repetitive lecture about public goods. He's a really nice public speaker on this. There aren't many in crypto that do that well. Gavin Wood's another that does a decent job. The point is that like the content is so competitive because of the money involved that basically, even if you make amazing content, nobody's going to see it. So the question is, how do you get everybody to look at it and make it a consistent resource that they come back to? And I don't know if there's a good answer to that question right now, because my own forecast for like the industry as a whole is that a lot of people are going to be exiting as the bear market gets harsher. I think it's likely that the bear market is going to get much worse, and that a lot of these startups are actually not going to make it, probably most of them. Unless VCs want to fill the gap, or those people in those projects are retainable employees. But what I see normally is that they're contractors that work remotely, and in a lot of cases they're pseudo-anonymous. So if you've got a handful, if like the proportion of consultants to full-time employees that have accountability to the company they work for is really bad, then those consultants can just exit the market and go elsewhere. So I think ideologically based projects are the ones that are going to survive the best. That's my opinion. And for journalism, that's an easy sell.
Nick, you and I have someone else talking.
Yeah.
Oh, I know you and I have talked about maybe doing a while back an on-chain analysis pod for PubDAO, and it's evolved a lot since then. But if you think PubDAO can figure into this some way, whether it's through like syndicating through Web3 related like publishers or publications, or getting other kind of talent. It seems like JournoDAO would have the actual journalistic talent here, but maybe PubDAO can come into some kind of syndication service. So if you have any ideas there, I'm happy to address them.
I think they would go for it, yeah. As always, I think the question is like, what's if the focus is on distributing content and making content, that's one function. Another would be curating talent that can do better, and be like a new generation of media. And I think that it depends a lot on whether or not journalists that are well established, that are really solid writers and know the editorial process, blah 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 blah. If those people are flexible and willing to learn like the subtleties of like cryptocurrency markets and finance, and tie it into stuff they already know from covering the last 20 years of like corruption stories in different local economies. I think that's the big question. Like, do we import those types in, or is the goal to get college students and people that are just exiting, or people in their 20s? I don't know that there's a strategic, you don't need to make a choice one or the other. It's not a dichotomy, but I don't know, because I'm not a journalist, what the best approach would be to have the most impact.
I also wonder if journalism is going to change based on the fractional way we digest stories and the detention spans. So, like, I wonder if we also need to like consider creating, taking the best practices of journalism that you all have and know, and actually formatting it for a new kind of audience. I've been thinking about this for many years and trying to do like pocket stories instead of long form, because it's just something that is happening. We can't really avoid, but maybe we can help lead and bring the best of. It's just an idea.
I feel like I could make a pretty compelling argument both in favor and against what you're saying, actually. So it always kind of feels like, if I'm honest, like it always feels the answer is always all of the above. And I feel like it's been that way for 15 years now. You gotta fight it on all fronts, because everything that you're saying, like we need short content versus longer content. Do we need to work with veteran journalists versus kids out of college? The answer to all those is yes. And I don't see any. And when it comes, I mean, if there's a budgetary question and you have to, and you're forced to choose, then I guess that's when you have to have that conversation. But we're not at that point, and like those all seem important to me. So I can't choose between any of those in my mind.
Yeah, it's a yes and conversation, because the legacy journalists have the platform and they have the reach. So you have to make sure that what they're saying is grounded in actual reality and fact. And then the young emerging journalists have that drive and that different vision that a legacy journalist won't have. So you have to have both.
I think the only important thing is that we just stick around. Like to Nick's point, the ideological endeavors are going to be the ones that survive. I think what I took away from my decade in media is just that everyone was chasing like the flavor of the moment, but it was always like the people who just stuck with one thing who were always like the flavor of the moment, that you're always wanting to be that. And it's like, okay, this person built something, or this org built something in 4 or 5 years that now everyone thinks they have to like become overnight, instead of just focusing on the thing that they want to do that will then be revered by everyone, be like, oh yeah, that's what you should be doing. So I think yeah, whatever we do, it's do everything yes and, but then as long as we just stick with it, I think that's really the success right there. Is like, if we just don't give up, it's gonna work.
Yeah, one question I had is what is this bear market that you speak of? Like I hadn't noticed. I was paying attention to other things. That's not true, but
it's fine. It's probably nothing.
it's probably nothing.
Yeah, and we have the freedom of 0 resources, so we can really do anything.
Yeah, right. I mean that is the real truth of the matter is like everything is still open at this point. So as things come around and they kind of have the most gravity and the most momentum, without being like clearly pulling us in the wrong direction. I mean, that seems to be what's working so far, is just and we're a DAO. Like, you follow what people are passionate about and willing to contribute to. So yeah, for now that's where we're at. It's funny, like what you're saying, Keith, about yeah, I mean, the thing in the people, they're all nice people, but the people I try to avoid the most with any of the newsrooms that I'm tapped into is always the social team or the SEO team, because they're always pointing you to yesterday's news. So it's like, but it's already trending. Like, you want to make the next thing trend. So I don't know that that's insightful for what we're working on, but yeah, it's not about what's big today, it's about what's big tomorrow, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also think that there's with the young and old dichotomy, I think that we could be in a unique position to create like a knowledge sharing space where, like, as long as everyone's kind of willing, then we could use the people who have that deep legacy journalism media knowledge, but who are just kind of baffled by the Web3 stuff. And the younger people, they tend to trend younger, who are like more into the the Web3 technology stuff, but don't really know what the journalism game is about. And as long as both sides are willing, that seems like a very good like supply and demand matchup there.
Yeah, I mean, if there's some kind of low bandwidth way to also kind of fill that educational void, even if it's doing a Twitter Spaces or something that's more aimed at just kind of having some of these more like just bringing people along discussions. I think that's a real need that we could begin to fill.
And maybe just get people who join who are experts in whatever they're experts in. They can we just empower them to put on seminars or trainings or just, I don't know, brown bag sessions or whatever. And that can be somebody who's got decades of journalism experience but has like literally no idea what a blockchain is. Like they can still be part of JournoDAO and just focus on like the journalism stuff, and then maybe they pick up a little bit more of like what Web3 is about while they're here. And then meanwhile, like the degens can like learn some like journalism chops from the people who have been at it.
I'm curious to actually know if you guys, how many of you guys are don't everyone talk at once, but I don't know a good way to phrase this to 7 other people, but do you know a lot of academic people or people that work in those types of settings that are following cryptocurrency that take it seriously? Because I haven't gotten a lot of solid feedback on that question yet.
I know of a few, and I'm getting ready when I head back east. Like I was saying earlier, I'm going to find out who's actually doing that research. I'm back at school now, and one of my undergraduate projects is involving blockchain, and I'm here in the Boulder area. And over at CU Boulder, there's a huge, it's called the Media Lab. They're doing a ton of stuff. So I would tap them, Nathan Schneider, and we can DM on Discord. I think I posted in the Discord somewhere. They're really running with a lot of this research. So I would actually tap into them.
I mean, there's definitely fewer than you would think. I mean, there's a couple of people at the Santa Fe Institute, which is like literally, dedicated to the study of complexity. So you would think they would be all over blockchain and crypto, but there's just like 1 or 2 people. But they are there, and there's certainly. I find academics a lot more willing, I would say on average, to at least have the conversation than most journalists. So there's that.
I have a suggestion. This is Amy again. Would you all consider doing a summer camp for high school kids that might be interested in journalism and Web3 blockchain, and just do a beta on one city? And that could probably be part of our, our public good kind of thing. That's just a thought.
Electric
Awesome.
Coin Company, which is behind Zcash, this is the business side of Zcash. They have crypto for good. If you Google electriccoincompany.co, I think they have a whole arm that they created that does this very thing. They created curriculums that goes into different underprivileged city aspects of cities and teaches people how to access crypto from like a banking perspective and to create generational wealth. We could do the same thing with journalism and with all the stuff we're talking about here. And that would be a pretty amazing project to tap into for sure.
Can you share that on the Discord chat so I can take a deep dive? Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I love the idea of a summer camp. I don't know how much I can facilitate that, but I think it's a great idea.
It could be virtual, just do a beta and see if there's interest out there.
I've got event experience, production, development, and execution, so I could probably help with that.
Is that interesting?
Awesome.
Jennifer, is that interesting to you, that idea? Or
I mean, it's definitely a space I'm already kind of getting involved in, like, you know, and so I absolutely feel like it's um, just aligns.
Mhm.
Um, I think that there's some, yeah, it definitely would have to be at a college or something, though, or it'd have to be somewhere they can have like the hardware so to be able to. Well, actually, they wouldn't need it really because we're doing journalism, but you know, Web3. Yeah, I would absolutely be interested in that.
Does high school seem young to anyone else for like, but because there's like the two things of like journalism and crypto, it feels like a lot for that age. Like I wonder if like the more the what Nick was saying earlier about there being like, nobody in community colleges is talking about this, like maybe more of a community college. I wonder. I literally don't know, but like I'm trying to imagine talking to like some of the kids at my daughter's high school about this conversation, and it's hard to imagine a lot of engagement. But maybe like it probably depends on the school.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, we just like in Miami, the girls the group that you chimed in yesterday, or that you were there yesterday. I mean, we all did like an education. We brought in like high school students, high school girls in like 2 or 3 schools, and did like sessions with them, and then we actually had them create their own NFT, and like yeah, I mean they're hungry to learn, but I think
Okay.
this could be really interesting because it taps into like the creative. You know, people think of journalism as creative, and maybe we can tap into that a little bit more for them. You know, just adjust it a bit, and then use kind of like a fact checking thing as something that's really a fun tool that's really important, and blah blah blah.
A
But
lot of
yeah, I think young storytellers is kind of absolutely, we take it as like a mentoring kind of thing.
a lot of journalism schools too do a program, I think in the summertime, where they'll have high school journalists that are like in their school papers come to the university and do like an incubator. I know we did it at UNC. So that would be something to explore as well, because they'll spend like a week working with the professors and professional journalists to really incubate. Usually it's high school seniors.
I mean, I think that like journalism and stories and like with VR and all this stuff is going to really, and metaverse stuff is going to be able to take us on journeys that we never thought were possible. And, you know, through this narrative that we provide, I think we're going to be able to experience historical events like never before. And, you know, I think you guys, you know, can just provide guidance and make it fun.
All right. Well, we've got 60 seconds left to discuss all business model options. Go. um, oh, maybe that's probably something better left for another time. But anyway, I think yeah, I'd be interested to see where the summer camp idea goes. I don't think I'm in a place where that would make much sense, but yeah, I would be willing to support if that's something people want to run with.
I think it's a great idea. I met 2 girls in Denver, 16, East Denver. They became like part of a DAO. They're like, they have all kinds of ideas. They're really smart kids. Two young girls.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to help like find the interested students, but I could help, and maybe this is where Eric could come into just crafting like that, what the actual curriculum might look like, and the different areas to cover and stuff like that, and doing some of the actual sessions and stuff. I'd be down for that.
That's probably where I would fall in that too. I'll be remote for June and July on the road. And then when I get back in August, I'll be heading back into school, but I could definitely chime in on curriculum and then help teach some aspects, especially like the NFT stuff.
Lots more money out there for teaching women and youth right now. That's a really big thing. So we can probably really get that sold.
And if you want to try the metaverse, I have somebody that does have parcel in crypto voxel. So we can try that too.
I just want Eric to start a newspaper in the metaverse
Yes, yes,
where you have to go to the actual newspaper store and pick up the publication.
yes. That's what we plan to do is B2B on that metaverse.
Flip them a coin at the newsstand, grab the paper.
That would be awesome. That would be like going back.
Yeah.
Cool, everyone. Well, I have to get running. Oh, one quick thing. We've got Twitter Spaces planned for tomorrow at I believe it's 11 a.m. Pacific. So don't have a topic planned yet, but shoot me a DM or something if you got like something burning that you wanna share, or you just want to join in. That's tomorrow at 11. Sound good? Cool. All right, everyone. See you on Discord. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. It's great listening to you guys.
Thanks. Bye.
And Nick, I sent you a friend request on Discord there.
Cool. We'll talk more.
All right, later.